The worst types of debt to have and how to avoid them. Did you know that there are different types of debt? And some are worse than others. In fact, some can ruin your life if you're not careful. So today, we're going to talk about the worst types of debt to have and how to avoid them. The first type of debt to avoid is high-interest debt. When it comes to debt, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. The best type of debt for one person may not be the best for another. Ultimately, it depends on a variety of factors, including interest rates, repayment terms, and personal circumstances. That said, there are some general guidelines that can help you make the best decision for your situation. One of the most important things to consider is the interest rate. High-interest debt, such as credit card debt, can be very costly to repay. If you have high-interest debt, you may want to consider consolidating it into a lower-interest loan. Another thing to consider is the repayment terms. Longer repayment terms may seem like a good idea, but they can actually end up costing you more in interest. And finally, consider your personal circumstances. If you're struggling to make ends meet, it may be better to focus on paying off your debt rather than taking on more. Whatever decision you make, be sure to do your research and understand all of your options before making a commitment. The second type of debt to avoid is variable rate debt. Variable rate debt is the type of debt that has an interest rate that can fluctuate over time. This means that you could end up paying more interest on your debt than you originally anticipated. Variable rate debt is often used for home equity lines of credit and adjustable rate mortgages. While the initial interest rate on these loans may be lower than fixed rate loans, it's important to be aware of the potential for the interest rate to increase in the future. If you're not comfortable with the idea of your payments going up, you may want to avoid variable rate debt altogether. The third type of debt to avoid is long-term debt. It's no secret that debt can be a heavy burden. Missed payments can damage your credit score, and the interest payments can quickly add up. For these reasons, it's important to be mindful of the types of debt you take on. While some debt may be unavoidable, there are certain types that should be avoided if at all possible. One type of debt to avoid is long-term debt. This is debt that will take longer than 5 years to pay off, and it often comes with a higher interest rate. As a result, you could end up paying more in interest than you would for a shorter-term loan. Another type of debt to avoid is variable rate debt. This type of debt comes with an interest rate that can fluctuate, which means your monthly payments could go up or down without warning. If you're already struggling to make ends meet, this can add even more stress to your life. For these reasons, it's best to steer clear of long-term and variable rate debt if at all possible. The fourth type of debt to avoid is secured debt. When you hear the term secured debt, what comes to mind? Perhaps you think of a home mortgage or a car loan. But what is secured debt, and how does it differ from unsecured debt? In general, secured debt is any type of loan that is backed by collateral. This means that if you default on the loan, the lender can seize the collateral in order to repay the debt. Common examples of collateral include homes, cars, and other pieces of property. In contrast, unsecured debt is not backed by any collateral. This means that if you default on the loan, the lender cannot seize any assets in order to repay the debt. Instead, they can only attempt to collect the debt through other means, such as lawsuits or wage garnishment. Because unsecured debt is not backed by any collateral, it is often seen as more risky for lenders and as a result, may have a higher interest rate than secured debt. The fifth type of debt to avoid is co-sign debt. Most of us have heard stories about friends or family members who have co-signed for a loan and then had the debtor fail to make payments, leaving the co-signer on the hook for the entire amount. This can be a painful experience, both financially and emotionally. But what exactly is co-signed debt, and how does it work? Co-sign debt is simply a loan where two or more people are responsible for repaying the amount borrowed. The terms of the loan will specify how much each person is responsible for, and in most cases, both parties are equally liable. If one person fails to make a payment, the other person is still responsible for their share. In some cases, co-signing can be a helpful way to get access to credit. For example, if you have good credit but don't have enough income to qualify for a loan on your own, you may be able to get approved by adding a co-signer with a steady income. However, it's important to carefully consider the risks before co-signing any loan. If the borrower fails to make timely payments, it can damage your credit score and put a strain on your relationship. The sixth type of debt to avoid is payday loan debt. Payday loans are a type of short-term borrowing where you typically borrow a small amount of money and agree to repay it when you receive your next paycheck. Payday loans can be helpful in some situations, but they also come with a number of risks. One of the biggest dangers of payday loans is that they can trap you in a cycle of debt. This is because the fees and interest rates on payday loans are typically very high, which means you could quickly find yourself owing more money than you can afford to repay. Another danger of payday loans is that they are often structured in such a way that makes it very difficult to escape the debt once you're trapped in it. This is because the loans are typically due in full very quickly, often within just a few weeks. This can leave you scrambling to come up with the money to repay the loan, which can lead to even more financial difficulties. If you're considering taking out a payday loan, be sure to understand the risks involved before making any decisions. These are the worst types of debt to have. If you're in any of these situations, it's important to take steps to get out of debt as soon as possible. The longer you stay in debt, the worse it will be for your financial health. If you're struggling with debt, there are resources available to help you. You can contact a credit counseling agency or a non-profit financial organization for help. You can also talk to a financial advisor to get advice on how to get out of debt. Taking steps to get out of debt is important for your financial health. If you're in debt, make a plan to get out as soon as possible. It may be difficult, but it's worth it. Subscribe to my channel for more tips on how to get out of debt.